because you can handle the truth.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. And it is Monday, October 15th, 2018. We have got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments and questions. Just now breaking, this just now came on out. CNN is claiming that the Saudi government is going to admit that the missing journalist was accidentally killed in an interrogation gone wrong. And this story has been picked up. It's on Reuters. It's on Associated Press. Haaretz had it as well. And Sibel Edmonds is tweeting out there's going to be an announcement. It's not what CNN says it is. So what's amazing is I'm looking at the corporate media here, and they're still going with Trump is saying the Saudi king is denying any responsibility. Well, if it was an accident, technically, I guess that would be true. But we'll be talking about this a little bit later in the show. We're waiting to see if any additional information shows up. And let's see. Wow, we already have a caller on the line. Let's go to Francis in Montreal. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. I got a funny story for you today that's kind of off the beaten path. I like going over to Voltaire Network there, run by Thierry Meyssan. And Thierry Meyssan is the first guy to discover that 9/11 was a fake job, with his famous picture of the airplane crashing into the Pentagon. He's got a good story right now. Macedonia had a plebiscite to decide whether or not to join the EU and NATO. And overwhelmingly, the people of Macedonia voted no. So immediately, the EU officials and the UN officials all started going to the parliamentarians and saying, forget that. You're going to vote for the EU and NATO. But that's not the end of it. The people started getting really angry in Macedonia. The U.S. ambassador opened up an office in a luxury apartment and started basically handing out $2.5 million each to each Macedonian parliamentarian in duffel bags. And it was all coordinated by U.S. State Department employee Mitko Bercheski, a.k.a. Agent Tesla. So, if you ever wonder why the U.S. is, $21.5 trillion in debt, that's where all the money's going, just crazy stuff. I mean, who even cares about Macedonia, right? It's a nothing country.
It's in a very strategic location, and you need to look at that.
It's a strategic location if you want to surround Russia and put a knife to their throats.
Yes.
And now there's the big article. There's another article up there, and now they're redeploying the U.S. Second Fleet into the Baltic.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that later in the show.
Well, the Russians say they got hypersonic missiles that can wipe out every aircraft carrier the U.S. has got. So that's going to be an interesting subject to talk about.
Well, thank you for the update on Macedonia, and we're going to let you go here because I got a lot of news I got to get through, so thank you for the phone call. And speaking of Donald Trump and Melania are in the process of touring the devastated areas in Florida. They went down there with took along a presidential helicopter, and they're flying overhead. And I'm sure that it may be very encouraging to the people in the middle of that devastation to look up and see Marine One overhead with the president waving at them. But the hard reality is there has not really been a tremendous amount of logistical support getting into them just yet. And people who were not preppers, people who were not prepped, understandably are dealing with a lot of hardship, and there are people who've lost their electricity. They're not going to get it back for a month. The same thing about safe drinking water. Cars have been destroyed. People can't get in and out of there. It is a real mess. And Florida residents are saying we need answers. People are getting desperate for food and shelter. And they just want some help. And I'm wondering, is this a repeat of the aftermath of Katrina, where the government just sort of dawdled and really didn't get down there in a timely manner? Is that being repeated again? Now, over at Tyndall Air Force Base, which was completely demolished by Hurricane Michael, it's a complete loss here. Questions are being asked over nearly 24 F-22 stealth fighters, which are still unaccounted for. And people still can't get in there to actually get into the hangars, which are destroyed. So it's going to be very difficult going, very dangerous here. But apparently Tyndall had 55 stealth fighters, and the Air Force evacuated 33 of the planes to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. However, they couldn't get the remaining 22 fighters out. Now, why might that be? Apparently, Air Force officials will not talk about what's going on other than to say the aircraft were left at the base because of maintenance or safety reasons. Okay. F-22s are notoriously finicky and not always flight worthy. The Air Force reported earlier this year that just a little less than half of all the F-22s out there were mission ready at any given time. This is the lowest rate of any fighter in the Air Force. So it looks like these 22 planes were basically left there because they couldn't be flown out. And the total value of these unaccounted for fighters is around $7.5 billion, because each one of them costs $339 million each. So that's a big part of the losses there. Okay, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And before we move on to the other news here, I saw this really cool. Okay, let's try that. Is that better? Okay, all right, there we are. I saw this video. It was basically a survey going down the coastline where the hurricane struck. And stuck in the middle of all that rubble is one very nice house, perfectly intact. And the backstory on that is that the owner of the house, when he had it built, had it designed to withstand wind gusts of 250 miles an hour. And it's up on stilts, which is required along those coastlines because of the storm surge danger. It looks like it's pretty much still intact. If there's any damage, it's minor. And the guy who owns it lives in it part-time and rents it out when he's not there. And I can imagine there's going to be a line of people wanting to rent that place now. Ooh, we want to stay in the hurricane house. So let's get on over here to the war zones. And apparently over in Syria, Syria's Al-Qaeda has announced they will accept the Idlib deal. Now, the Idlib deal basically amounts to this plan that Russia, Turkey, and Syria came up with to establish a deconfliction zone around Idlib, to not go directly into Idlib out of concern for civilian casualties. And Assad is saying this is just a temporary measure while they try and open up humanitarian corridors for the civilians to get out. The tricky part, of course, is that the terrorists that are in Idlib are trying to blend into the population. It's not like the good old days where soldiers wore uniforms so you know who was a combatant, which side they were on. This is a whole new way of looking at war. And so that's a little bit of good news. However, the deadline for the jihadists to leave that buffer zone has passed, and they're still in there. Now, not all the groups, there are a lot of players in this war in Syria. Not all of those terrorist groups have agreed to the Idlib deal. But basically, the senior assistant to the Iranian foreign minister, Hossein Jaban Ansari, is expressing concern that there might be a massacre in Syria's Idlib, and that would be Iran's red line. Now, he's not exactly saying what that means and what Iran might do, but there are obviously tremendous concerns over all the civilians who are being killed. Speaking of which, apparently another 2,500 bodies have been found under the rubble in Raqqa, and apparently most of them are civilians. And so this is a very, very dirty war. And I posted an article to whatreallyhappened.com. It's from Global Research up in Canada, basically saying that the United States doesn't fight clean wars, that they have used banned weapons, even going back to World War II. And they certainly have in every single one of the conflicts since 9/11. Depleted uranium, white phosphorus, chemical weapons. So it's not very good. Syria has announced they're going to reopen key crossings with Jordan and with Israel-occupied Golan. So maybe that little tension and stress over Golan is backing down. But apparently UN vehicles were seen crossing into the Golan near the Syrian town of Quneitra earlier today. So this is the first time these crossings have been opened in several years. I hope it signals an easing of tensions. That would be a really good thing to have happen. Meanwhile, the Syrian army has kicked off yet another attempt to eliminate ISIS in al-Safa. And they're launching this new offensive on the remaining ISIS fighters in the al-Safa area with support from Russia north of al-Suwaida. And apparently on October 12th and 13th, pro-government sources reported that a large number of ISIS fighters had been killed. However, no notable gains were made on the ground by the Syrian Arab Army and its allies. So it's tough going. It's tough going. Now, this Russia-Turkish deconfliction agreement is facing difficulties with the withdrawal of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham from the demilitarized zone, according to local sources. And apparently militants also violated the agreement on the 13th when they shelled the town of al-Bassa and a base of the Syrian Arab Army in northwestern Hama. So it's unfortunately a very, very tenuous deal here. Now, here is a little bit of surprising news that came on out, and this is from Iranian.com. Apparently, there are talks between the United Nations and Hezbollah regarding forming a new government in Iraq, because the government that was put into Iraq following the U.S. invasion has descended into such terrible corruption. It's really not doing a service for the Iraqi people. And so the UN is thinking maybe it's time to put a new government in there. And of course, this is resulting in hostile language coming back from the U.S. establishment, who have been shouting threats at Iraqi leaders and Hezbollah. But it signals a change on the ground over there. It'd be nice to see the UN actually do something useful. Okay, over in Yemen, they are on the verge of the world's worst famine in the last century if this war is allowed to continue. And they're basically saying that it's estimated Yemen only has about another 3 months of internal food stockpiles. And there are 12 to 13 million civilians at risk of literally starving to death. And obviously Saudi Arabia is taking the point of view, this is a war of attrition. And when you lose a war, bad things happen, and hunger and starvation is just one of them. The Allies certainly did that to both Germany and Japan in the closing days of those wars, but that doesn't justify it today here. Meanwhile, the U.S.-Saudi coalition in Yemen has bombed yet more buses of refugees. These were buses full of people trying to flee Hodeida and get out of the way of the conflict. And they were bombed. 19 people killed, at least 30 injured. And again, these were civilians. They were not combatants. So it's an ugly, dirty war. On the other side, apparently Yemen's army fired a ballistic missile and it hit a gathering of Saudi-backed militants in Sana'a province. So this was the Zelzel-2 missile, was fired at the military base, and apparently it's a very accurate missile. It hit its intended target. And apparently this was retaliation for the bombing of those 2 school buses. Okay, so let's get on back to this missing journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. And again, I'm not seeing it on the Fox channel yet. But that story is out there where CNN has said that Saudi Arabia will admit the missing journalist was accidentally killed in a botched interrogation. Must have been a really rough one. And that what was really intended was that they wanted to basically take him back to Saudi Arabia covertly. It's an abduction, throw him into prison there, which actually was the version of the story that we got from a distant member of the royal family. So, a little bit of confusion there. The police finally did get to search the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. They reported that the place had obviously been cleaned and smelled of fresh paint. Now, a lot of people are asking, what was really going on? Why was Khashoggi so important that Saudi Arabia risked this diplomatic dust-up over this one reporter? Well, you need to look at his past. He was formerly a senior editor in Saudi state media and an advisor to the royal court. He was very connected and versed in what was going on in Riyadh. He knew where all the bodies were buried. And maybe there was a concern that as he went more independent, he might release some secrets, such as Saudi Arabia's supposed role in 9/11. And that may have been the reason that they did what they did. But this has turned into a major, major diplomatic mess. In an older report before this one about they're going to admit they accidentally killed him, The Intercept was reporting that Saudi media was casting the Khashoggi disappearance as a conspiracy theory. And in the midst of it, claimed it was all coming from the Washington Post. It was all lies because, as you know, the Washington Post is owned by Qatar, which was a big goof on Saudi media's part because, no, the Washington Post is not owned by Qatar. So, not thinking it through. One of the issues that was being talked about was Trump's vow of strict punishments if Saudi Arabia was responsible for the death of the journalist, which, if CNN is to be believed, they're about to admit that they were. And of course, that punishment would be sanctions. Saudi Arabia has come on back and said, well, if you start sanctioning us, we're going to reconcile with Iran. We're going to go buddy-buddy with Iran and spoil your plans to isolate them. So there's still a lot. Sibel Edmonds is right. It's a diplomatic minefield. It's an absolutely diplomatic minefield. Now, Trump pulled back on the rhetoric claiming that rogue killers could have murdered Jamal Khashoggi, based on the Saudi king firmly denying any part in the disappearance of the dissident journalist. But you need to remember, that Saudi king, he's very old, and he probably doesn't know a lot about what's going on inside his own government. We've got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back after these few words.
corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And yes, once again, we're standing in front of you and saying that Republic Broadcasting does need your help. So the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. And don't forget about the Front Sight Firearms Training Academy promotion, because that is on again. And that's going to be on until the end of the year. So time to start thinking about that Christmas list and the shooting enthusiasts who are now on it. Getting on back to the news, last Friday, there was, of course, again, another march along the border between Gaza and Israel, part of the Great March of Return. Apparently, 7 Palestinians were killed, 252 wounded, and the Palestinians apparently burned tires, released dozens of arson balloons into Israel, and at one point cut the barbed wire of the border fence and directly clashed with Israeli soldiers. So this is starting to escalate. Now, Israel has issued a warning to Hamas. that unless the protests stop, there will be painful strikes into Gaza. In other words, Israel's attitude is there is no right to freedom of speech and protest. It's making us look bad to the rest of the world. You will stop it or we will bomb you to make you stop it. And there was another report that the Israeli military are already starting to ramp up for a major operation in Gaza. Another indicator may be the fact that Israel has now halted fuel deliveries into the besieged Gaza Strip. And basically, Avigdor Lieberman ordered this after the protests on Friday. Now, the suspension comes just days after a United Nations brokered deal to supply Gaza with Qatari oil. And that was supposed to come into effect. All right, we're going to take a phone call here. Jim in Chicago, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Michael, before I get to the Saudi reporter that was possibly murdered, your story about the F-22s that were left on the base and they basically were destroyed or neglected.
Yeah.
Now, tell me this. Didn't they know, like, at least a week in advance before the hurricane was coming?
I don't know that they knew it was going to be that strong. They may not have really appreciated how strong it was going to be until, like 24, 48 hours beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
but, I mean, if the planes can't, if the planes can't fly,
nearby.
Hey, hang on, Jim.
They're easily gone to.
Jim, if the planes can't fly, how would you get them out of there? It's not like you can bring up a truck and put them on board.
Oh, so you're saying they weren't able to fly then?
Yeah, remember the Air Force has admitted less than half of the F-22s are actually able to fly because they've got so many problems.
Oh, now I understand then. Okay. Moving on to the Saudi reporter. Now, this is something I don't understand. If they really wanted to get rid of him, why didn't they just shoot him on the street or go to his apartment?
Well, according to the CNN story, they didn't want to kill him at all. They wanted to interrogate him, and then they wanted to smuggle him back to Saudi Arabia to throw him in jail. And I'm still not seeing any confirmation on this CNN story, but it's been picked up by Haaretz, AP, Reuters. Nothing about it on Fox yet. And again, we have to sort of put a question mark at the end of this one because Sibel Edmonds tweeted on out that there was a report coming out, but it's not what CNN says. And apparently she is currently in Turkey where she has access to sources that the rest of us do not.
And do we really know if he's dead or not?
Well, he's certainly not, can't be proven to be alive.
Well, that's true. That's a good point. Now, this reporter, was he ever talking about the situation in Yemen where many people were getting murdered?
Yes, he was. He was talking about a lot of things that angered the Saudi government. But the real issue may have been the fact that previously he'd been in the Saudi media and an advisor to the royal court. So he had a lot of deep, dark secrets in that brain of his, and the Saudi government may have been concerned that he was going to start blowing the whistle on past crimes.
Well, hopefully he has a lot of information either recorded or written down, and maybe his fiancée has that information.
Well, I'm sure that she's gone into hiding to protect her own life, and it would be nice if this guy had a dead man switch, which is something that anybody who's out there challenging the powers that be needs to have. A mechanism where everything that you've got gets dumped on the net if you disappear. All right, Jim, got to let you go. Got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. As most of you know, my regular listeners, I offer energy cleaners for sale at my website. If you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, go to my website, thelibertyman.com. Educate yourself about these marvelous healing devices. We focus on pain mitigation and getting a great night's sleep. Arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, doesn't matter. Keep in mind, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. Energy cleaners, $285, shipping included to American zip codes. You can educate yourself all about the energy cleaner right there at my website, the patent application, the wonderful testimonials. Be sure and check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads to go with the energy cleaner. Now, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. I have a toll-free order line, or you can order it right at my website at thelibertyman.com. The toll-free order line is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Thank you.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking about what's going on over in Israel and Palestine. And there was a video that was posted to What Really Happened that basically shows an Israeli settler just doing a hit and run on 2 Palestinian workers in the occupied West Bank. And according to this story, this is happening on a very regular basis. And apparently the 2 who were hit suffered head injuries. And apparently this is something that happens on a regular basis, where the settlers just drive into the Palestinians. So let's see. All right, just somebody else sent me in the Russia Today is now running the story that the Saudi government will say the journalist died as a result of the interrogation gone wrong. They must have been really rough on him. I wonder what they wanted. Apparently, there's been another incident in the village of Bidya where Jewish settlers hurled stones at a vehicle she and her husband were riding in and hit her in the head and killed her. And the Jerusalem Magistrates Court has now issued a gag order on the story. So no more information will be coming out, certainly not from the Israeli media. Now, you remember that little stink that was raised when BDS activists convinced this rock star, Lorde, to cancel a concert in Tel Aviv. And the Israeli courts started suing people left and right. They've sued two organizers in New Zealand, which can't be enforced. But apparently they also sued Gaza, or fined Gaza $12,000 just to do that. And Gaza obviously doesn't really have that money, but back down in New Zealand, gotta love those Kiwis, BDS activists have raised the money for Gaza to pay the Israeli fine. In fact, they've actually raised a little bit more than the fine. The trick will be getting it into Gaza with Israel's tightening blockade here. Canada has stepped in to fill the void left by the United States, which stopped funding to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees. And apparently they're going to allocate $40 million over the next 2 years to assist the health and education efforts of the refugee agency. And another $10 million is aimed at helping 460,000 Palestinian refugees who are currently living in Syria and Lebanon. So, good for the Canadians. Good for the Canadians. Now, you know, there is that documentary that you are never supposed to see about the Israel lobby in the United States. And Al Jazeera actually produced two of these. They did one first on the Israel lobby in Great Britain, which was allowed to air in Great Britain. Nobody pulled a D notice on it. And then they did one about the United States. And oh, was there all kinds of pressure being brought to bear? No, the American people can't see it. And so Al Jazeera basically said, okay, we're not going to release it in the United States. But clips of it are being leaked out bit by bit. At some point, enough of these things will be leaked out that they can reassemble the film and it'll be posted on the internet. And apparently this latest leaked clip shows that a pro-Israel, anti-Arab protest was manufactured with the help of the Hoover Institution. And apparently the protesters who were at this demonstration, Israel's good, Arabs are bad, were on a fellowship program run by the Hoover Institution. And a student in the clip says they were forced to participate. Now, the Hoover Institution is located at Stanford University and is funded under Stanford University's tax-exempt status as an educational institution. Now, the Hoover Institution is saying no comment, but I have to wonder if this kind of political activism violates the rules of being tax-exempt. Meanwhile, tensions are still high over in China, and apparently a Chinese representative, the Chinese envoy to the U.S., was interviewed on Fox News yesterday and said that the very name of the location where all this is going on shows whose vessels are on the offensive and who was on the defensive. Said when the incident took place, you were right to say it was the South China Sea. So it's at China's doorstep. It's not Chinese warships that are going to the coast of California or to the Gulf of Mexico. And he's absolutely right. The U.S. government is screaming Russia aggression, Chinese aggression. But all you have to do is look at a map of where all the military forces are and what direction they're headed to know who the aggressor really is here. Okay. And Mike Pence, not too long ago, had a very bombastic speech. It actually happened at the same time as the Kavanaugh confirmation drama. Told you we're being conditized here. And basically, he made the speech at the Hudson Institute and came out and said, there is more going on with China than the realm of trade. And he says, if you think U.S. relations with China can return to where they were 18 months ago, think again. The U.S. has China in its sights, and even a compromise on trade will not be a sufficient compromise for this administration. Now, I have to tell you in all honesty, I cannot accept that this government is trying to push forward with two major wars, one against Russia and one against China, with our military in such a dilapidated state. I mean, despite all the money that's been poured into it, it's like our medical care, most expensive in the world, not really very good. Same thing can be said about our military, most expensive in the world, not really very good. So, anyway, NATO Supreme Allied Commander is saying that the U.S. military is putting Russia on notice by deploying a carrier battle group to Norway for massive alliance drills later this month. And apparently, Dutch Marine Corps Director of Operations General Jeff McMurtry is accusing Russia of trying to provoke NATO by having military exercises up in the Arctic Circle. And again, it's that double standard. Yes, we're going to go everywhere, and we're going to rattle our weapons, and we're going to blow things up. But if Russia does it, oh, they're being aggressive. All right. Apparently, Trump is now up in Georgia looking at the storm damage and making a lot of speeches. I sure hope some help can get to those people here. Now, as you know, we're getting very close to the midterm elections, and it looks like Congress is going to basically vote for confirmation of 15 judges and then recess until after the election, so they can all go home and campaign and get out there and press the flesh and say what they think the voters want to hear to get reelected. Both sides are predicting victory. The Democrats are still saying it's going to be a blue wave. Judge Deneen is out there saying it's a red wave coming. And of course, the media polls are biased toward the liberals, but in the end, nobody can really know because there are two wild cards out there for this election. You know, all the polls go on out and they talk to the likely voters, but there are two wild cards out there. The first is fraud, of which there is going to be a lot. And the second, of course, is the illegal immigration vote, which the Democrats have just been openly courting. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. All righty. Now, remember Fusion GPS? The co-founder, Glenn Simpson, gave testimony to Congress regarding his involvement in this plot against then-candidate Donald Trump, including the infamous Steele dossier. And speaking with Fox News on Sunday, Representative John Ratcliffe is saying that Glenn Simpson may be in serious legal trouble. Now, he's coming back this week to testify again. He's already announced he's going to be pleading the Fifth Amendment. And he could be in legal jeopardy, and very clearly somebody somewhere is not telling the truth. And Congress critters do not like that. Larry Klayman, the founder of both Judicial Watch and Freedom Watch, and now Freedom Watch's general counsel, has filed a class action antitrust suit against Google and YouTube over discrimination against conservatives. And you will never guess who just stepped on in to be on the side of Google and YouTube. And it turns out to be the law firm used by the Clintons. So we'll see what's happening when that one comes in. A lot of people are still talking about Hillary Clinton's apparent call for violence and her statement that you cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about, and saying there won't be civility unless the Democrats win the Congress. Now, there's no way they're going to win the Senate. The House is up for grabs, though. Could go either way. It could go either way. Both sides are trying to rally the base. The Democrats are out there just screaming, abortion, gay rights, using the women's restroom. Meanwhile, the Republicans are finding that the treatment of Kavanaugh has energized the GOP base. And so a lot more of them may be going out to vote than was originally predicted. Here in Hawaii, Mazie Hirono has come under serious criticism for her behavior in that hearing room. And they're calling her Crazy Mazie now for the way that she was acting. And getting on back to Hillary Clinton, she just can't let go of 2016. And apparently this last weekend on CBS's Sunday Morning, she came on out and complained that the way in which Donald Trump debated her was just imbued with sexism. Oh, he was being sexist. Let it go, Hillary. Now, this is a little dangerous, okay? As you know, Alec Baldwin actually won an Emmy Award for his parody of President Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live. And Alec Baldwin was up in New Hampshire at a Democratic fundraiser and literally called for the overthrow of Trump. And he said, and this is a quote, "In an orderly and formal way and lawful way, we need to overthrow the government of the United States under Donald Trump." Well, there really is no orderly and formal or lawful way to overthrow the government. Now, he may be talking about trying to impeach the president, but it's very dangerous talk. And it does seem like we have lost all civility in the political discussion, and we're seeing more and more violence. Look up what's happening up at Portland. There may be another departure from the Trump administration. Trump came on out describing Secretary of Defense Mattis as sort of a Democrat who may leave the administration. And Trump was being grilled about, are you dissatisfied with him? Is this a firing? And he says, well, Mattis is a good guy. We get along. He may leave at some point. I mean, at some point, everybody leaves. People leave. That's Washington. Sometimes that's true. People get disgusted and leave. Some people just hang on forever and usually turn out to be the ones we wish would leave, like Bolton. Now, here's an interesting little story. This came out of The Hill, where Trump has come on out during that interview on 60 Minutes saying that he doesn't trust everybody in the White House. And his comment followed one made by First Lady Melania Trump during an interview last week, in which she said there are people who work in the West Wing she can't trust. And Donald Trump told Leslie Stahl, I feel the same way. I don't trust everybody in the White House, I'll be honest with you. So finally, he's learning. He made a big mistake letting the Obama holdovers stay on. Speaking of Portland, it got really ugly up there. A lot of violence. Apparently, there was another disturbance over the weekend between Antifa and a group called Prayer Right. And both sides were engaging in violence. And one of the issues that a lot of people are looking at is Antifa literally blockaded an intersection. They blocked traffic, and nothing was done. The police just stood down. And we have seen this happen before when these events are being fanned up for media exposure. But Portland's mayor, Ted Wheeler, it says he stands by his decision to allow Antifa to block the traffic and hassle motorists and have the police stand back. And, there was this one guy, 74-year-old Kent Hauser. He made a right turn against their wishes. They were literally out there saying, you go here, you go there. And they basically pounded on his silver Lexus. They smashed a window. The car sustained thousands of dollars in damage. This is not political discourse. And by the way, this is not what the First Amendment means when it says we have the right to peacefully assemble and petition the government for redress of grievances. Over in Georgia, Democratic gubernatorial nominee Stacey Abrams came on out and admitted that the blue wave is going to include undocumented immigrants. James Woods tweeted back out, they're not even bothering to hide it anymore. And they're not. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
This is too good to be true, except this time it is real. 100%. No joke. How about a $25,000 membership to Front Sight Firearms Training Facility as a thank you bonus for a one-time donation to RBN of only $500? It is a Commander lifetime membership with no yearly fees or dues. The training is free for the rest of your life with over 50 different classes. Then leave it to your designated beneficiary. You provide the approved firearm, holster, ammo, eye, and ear protection. Many features and bonuses are included, more than you would ever expect or believe. This is the ultimate graduation present, wedding gift, etc., etc. See the details. Go to RBN's webpage and frontsight.com to make it happen. You will hear this offer only on this radio network. Help keep RBN alive. Tell 5.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. By Mel. Great product. My husband and father-in-law use it regularly. Both my husband and father-in-law have had significant change in their blood pressure and overall health. By Amazon customers. It works for me. Returned to buy the tincture and the capsules as they were on sale during February. Unlike some other products, this one worked for blood pressure and occasional irregular heartbeat. Extendivite produced noticeable results after just 2 bottles, a 4-month supply. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think the supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And we're going to do a little update on this missing journalist. Apparently, the source for all of this, for Reuters, for AP, for Hot Adats, is CNN's Jake Tapper, who is tweeting out these little announcements and basically saying that the Saudis are preparing a report that says that the reporter was killed by a botched interrogation that had not been authorized by the Saudi government. There was no transparency. So they're going to blame the lower downs to take the blame off of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And then Jake Tapper followed it up saying, according to one of his sources, the report is still being prepared and cautioned that things could change, which lines up with what Sibel Edmonds was tweeting out about this. So, okay, getting on back to politics and the midterm elections. Apparently down in Memphis, Tennessee, felons who are not allowed to vote are trying to register. And the number of people filing voter registration applications has surged dramatically in Shelby County, yet county officials have basically dismissed 55% of them as being invalid. And they're saying, this is according to the Memphis Commercial Appeal, a large share of the influx of voter registration applications has been duplicates of already registered voters, incomplete applications, and applications from felons who can't vote or are otherwise unable to be processed. So, again, it's going to be a crooked election. That's how they get done here. House Minority Leader Representative Kevin McCarthy warned in an interview with Fox News that these far-left billionaires like George Soros, Michael Bloomberg, and Tom Steyer are pouring millions into Democratic committees this election cycle. They're trying to buy the government. And yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. That's why in a saner time, we used to have laws that limited how much the rich people could donate to political candidates in order to keep the people properly represented. But those days are gone. And I guess from their point of view, I mean, what's the point of even being a billionaire if you can't buy the government? Democrats are still whining and crying about a rigged system following Kavanaugh's confirmation to the United States Supreme Court. That's actually becoming another common Democratic crying point. Anytime they don't get what they want, the system is rigged, it's got to be rectified, it's got to be made fair. It's unfair that we're not getting what we want all the time. So, the Democrats, the party of the spoiled here. Now, here's an interesting story. This came out of the Political Insider. Apparently, the issue of the FBI being less than thorough or less than forthcoming with their FISA court application is starting to bubble up. And I'll get into this in more detail after station identification.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And we're talking about this story where Republican lawmakers have been dropping hints for a while that the FBI failed to provide federal judges on the surveillance court with exculpatory information. In other words, information that undercut the government's premise for opening this Trump-Russia collusion probe back in 2016. And apparently, Texas Representative John Ratcliffe yesterday gave the clearest picture to date of what the FBI allegedly withheld from the surveillance court. Ratcliffe is saying the FBI failed to include evidence regarding former Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, and he did this on an interview in Fox News. So, apparently, the FBI is now saying that they were only able to recover 5,000 of the 33,000 government emails Hillary Clinton deleted in violation of the law. Now, we know that the NSA says they have them all. And they apparently approached James Comey and said, would you like them? And Comey said, I would not. And again, something you're not going to see in the corporate media. Apparently, Federal Election Commission records indicate the Hillary campaign illegally laundered $84 million during the 2016 presidential election. The corruption just goes on and on. If you're in the club, you're allowed to get away with it. If you're not in the club, you go to jail. So let's talk about Elizabeth Warren, because this whole Pocahontas thing has jumped the shark. And basically the issue was that Elizabeth Warren claimed Native American heritage, and Donald Trump called her on it and said, get a DNA test. Well, because she's considering a possible run in 2020, she went ahead and got the DNA test and pronounced immediate victory. That yes, she has Native American heritage, 1/1000th. The expert who analyzed the DNA said it's a strong likelihood, going back about 10 generations. Well, folks, if your family has been in this country for a while, we're all carrying Native American DNA. I've got a little Huron in me, supposedly. But here's where it gets really weird. Detecting DNA for Native Americans is very hard because Native American leaders have asked tribal members not to participate in genetic databases. So stay with me on this one here. The tribes feel that they've been exploited, according to Lawrence Brody, who's a senior investigator with the Medical Genomics and Metabolic Genetics branch at the National Institutes of Health. And as a result, the amount of genetic data that is available from Native Americans is sparse. Not a lot of it out there. So what did they do for Elizabeth Warren? To make up for the lack of Native American DNA, Bustamante, who's the guy who did the DNA analysis, used samples from Mexico, Peru, and Colombia to stand in for Native American, based on the theory that Americans came to this land via the Bering Strait about 12,000 years ago, and slowly worked their way down the Americas. So it's all kind of a common gene pool. But this doesn't prove that Elizabeth Warren is even 1,000th Native American. she could be 1,000th Mexican or Peruvian or Colombian. It's an absolute joke for her to continue to insist that she's Native American based on the likelihood she is 1/1000th Native American. It really is absurd. All right, we're going to take a phone call from Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Mike, the chances of the king of Saudi Arabia not knowing about this is like slim to none. Like, this guy, I mean, he's the king of Saudi Arabia, so he would be the one giving the go-ahead for this interrogation / whatever they wound up doing to the guy, which they did kill him, but like, don't you find it amazing, Mike, how they're all going to the story? Because, they're saying they're completing the report. No, they're finishing the story they're going to use. That's what it means. Trump come out, said rogue killers.
Yep.
Now you see CNN. It's a lone group, not they didn't follow the procedure, or they were not. He didn't authorize this. So they're actually making like the king didn't authorize. The king is the one who would authorize this.
Well, let's back off a minute and give the man the benefit of a doubt. We know that in our own country, intelligence agencies go out and do rogue operations that do not have congressional or White House oversight. It's led to some of the biggest scandals in our history when they do. And so it is entirely possible that some ambitious person in the Saudi intelligence assigned to that consulate in Istanbul saw an opportunity to get a promotion or to get some praise here. We can't rule out the fact that it was a rogue operation, because if you really think about it, it has caused so much harm and upset. I don't think that had he really been in control, the king of Saudi Arabia would have authorized it, because his advisors would have told him there'll be a flashback on this.
Well, he might have authorized, though, the rendition of him back to Saudi Arabia, though, no?
Well,
because
he might
remember,
have.
the king and his... Well, the family members are in the intelligence agency also. I mean, the king would have his... It's a big family, so wouldn't they have their brothers of brothers down the line, you know what I mean, that are in these groups of, like, intelligence agencies or whatever, or the financial advisors are all part of that. It's a mafia run, so it's all in the family per se. But wow, nothing's going to, Mike, you realize this is, it's bad that this guy got killed. I mean, one person is one person, but you look at, the king authorized the war in Yemen, right?
Yes.
I mean, he also authorized a lot of the Wahhabi jihadis to go fight, and they went through, Turkey to go into Syria.
Yes.
So the guy is not wearing any. He doesn't have clean hands. You know what I mean? Like,
no, he doesn't.
He's not a clean person. But you know what, Mike? It seems like us, Israel and Saudi Arabia, Britain and France, we're the most murderous regime. I mean, we're going to cover for them. You know that, right? Like we're going to cover for the Saudis.
Because we want the oil prices to stay low, and we want the weapons deals to keep on going, and so this is going to go away. What really piques my curiosity, though, is why did it blow up this big to begin with? And there had to be another agenda in there. It may have been simply to disrupt this Saudi Davos in the desert economic summit and get people to not show up for that, which is what has actually happened.
Well, I never really figured they're going to have scantily clad women in downtown Riyadh, because the Wahhabis are a big part of Saudi Arabia, and they would never allow that, in Saudi Arabia. Hey, Mike, can I switch gears real quick if I have time? On the F-22, didn't they only make 200 of the plane?
I don't know what the production run has been on them. I do know that they are out of production now. And according to that report that we read, they're not, like the F-35, they're not very good. Half of them at any given time are unable to fly.
Well, the F-35 was actually supposed to be a cheaper replacement to the F-22.
Boy, did they get that one wrong.
But, Mike, if they only made 200 or so F-22s and you got 33 pulled out of Tyndall and you left 22 there because of maintenance and they're all broken down, that's a pretty bad reliability issue there. Can't you see that? I mean,
I've been pointing that out about all these modern U.S. weapon systems. They're not robust. They're not reliable. They're very fragile, gentle things. And that's why I'm very concerned about a potential war against Russia and China. I don't think we're going to do very well.
And then, Mike, switching gears again real quick, I want to talk about Antifa. You would think the police in Portland would have enough brains. They should all go on strike because obviously the chief of police is put in there by the mayor. And if the mayor is letting these people, the police stand down while they're directing traffic and screaming at people, the Antifa and Black Lives Matter. I mean, Mike, that is brown shirts like 2018, Mike. I mean, what you saw those videos, right? I mean, that's brown shirt stuff, what they were doing. I mean, that's dangerous. And Portland is like ground zero for this. That isn't that like the capital of Antifa? Pretty much.
Yeah, it's turning into it, yes.
But, all right, Mike, have a good show. That's all I needed to get out of me.
All right, well, thanks an awful lot. I was trying to find out how many F-22s have been built, and I'll have to go through the Wikipedia article later. Meanwhile, we're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network, and we're going to take another phone call from Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Mike, a couple of things. One is first about Elizabeth Warren. This is so silly because when you take a DNA test of a Native American, very possibly you're going to get somebody with some kind of Asian blood, and you probably just about anybody from Central or Eastern or even Southern Europe is going to have some kind of Asian blood in them from the Huns and from the Mongol invasion. The other thing is also because, the natives did come over from most of the Middle East from Siberia. There's the Russian defense minister. I forget his name now, but I looked him up. I looked up, some information about him because he called out the Israelis, right? Very good after that downing of that plane. And I looked him up, and he's half from some tribe in Siberia. So if he took a DNA test, he'd have a heck of a lot more Native American blood in him than Elizabeth Warren. So I got a good name for her. Princess Lion Girl. That I think would fit her even better than Pocahontas. The other thing is about Saudi Arabia. What's going on in Saudi Arabia? I was listening to Alex Jones earlier. He's got to watch it because he's going with now, this is a false flag, and maybe even Turkey. He had somebody saying he had some guy, some anonymous, kind of like his own QAnon now. Some guy named Zach, and I guess you could say Zach Anonymous, even though he gave his real name now. And he was saying he thinks Turkey. He's got good information that this was really Turkey that did it, that did the crime, and all. So Jones got to really be careful where he's going with all of this stuff. He's doing too much to try to be a sycophant to Trump, and I think he's really if he wants to keep his audience and keep the people who are supported him through the years, his biggest threat is not what Google and Facebook and Twitter are doing to him, and Apple. His biggest threat is he loses credibility with his people who he brought him to the dance. In fact, I got red pilled mostly because of when I started listening to Alex Jones. Those are the days that you were on even. Those are the days when he used to have you on his show and other people like you. And now he's getting more and more. It sounds more and more like getting to sound like a neocon. Ron Paul warned him about it about a year ago over in North Korea. He says, you think you're getting sound more and more like a neocon, and I think he is. I don't know what you have to say about that, but I'll just hear your answer off there. Okay.
Well, there's not much of an answer. I mean, I refrain from commenting on other commenters. I think our independent media is still too small for us to be attacking each other. Others don't agree with me on that. As far as Alex Jones current content. I have to be very honest. I don't pay that much attention to him. I will go through his websites and link to some of the stories I think are meaningful, but I haven't made a careful study of what his current philosophy is right now.
I mean, I still like him in a lot of respects. I mean, there's still a lot of good things that makes him really alternate media or independent media. But I just think he's got. I think he needs to watch it because I'm looking at other stuff online. The criticism of Jones is really quite heavy. If you look at the comment sections, a lot of other alternate media. So that's all. That's the only thing I'm saying because I want to see Jones succeed because he is part of the alternate media, and I want the alternate media to succeed and finally get America's attention. But at the same time, to remain alternate media, you can't start siding up with with either the government's position or the establishment's position, and certainly not with the rest of the mainstream media. And I consider Fox News very much part of the mainstream media. You know?
Yep. Okay, well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go here.
Okay.
This story just came on in. Okay, we're back to Hawaii's Mazie Hirono, who was out there, screaming at Kavanaugh, "Oh, you touched this girl when you were underage, and it's horrible," and she's famous for telling men to just shut up and step up and do the right thing and believe the accuser here. Well, apparently, Mazie Hirono is now under fire for reportedly covering up a sexual harassment scandal. And I haven't gone through this, but apparently it involves former Governor Ben Cayetano. And so karma has come on back. All right, let's talk about some economic news. A lot of stuff is going on. Sears has a new CEO. Apparently, they're going to close another 145 stores, and control over their pension system has now been transferred to a government agency. Because corporations that are in serious economic trouble, they have this irresistible temptation to pillage the pension fund. And nobody wants to see that happen. Over in China, their housing bubble has started to pop, and prices are starting to drop. And in order to sell homes, the realtors are basically, the prices have slid by almost 1/3. And so people are starting to buy the houses again, but the people who bought houses at their inflated values are very, very angry. And the anger is breaking into the public because they had to pay a higher price for effectively the same home. They're paying higher interest on whatever their mortgages are. And it's one of the reasons why these constant bubbles can be very unfair. If you catch the wrong time at the bubble, you could be left holding an asset that's actually worth less than what you owe on it. That's what's called being underwater. Now, as part of the fallout from this journalist's disappearance, Trump came on out and said there would be punishment for Saudi Arabia if they're behind the disappearance of this journalist. Riyadh came on back saying that there will be a very strong retaliation. The result was the Saudi stock market crashed the most since 2016. And again, on the wings of this kerfuffle over the journalist, oil jumps after a Saudi official floated this trial balloon op-ed envisioning an oil weapon devastation. In other words, shutting off the valve. It's their valve. So that would give the U.S. someplace to sell all the oil that they are no longer selling to China, I guess, here. Now, over at Sputnik News, they're reporting that Iran has found new partners for oil exports. They've worked out ways to get around these U.S. sanctions, and these other partners are ready to buy Iranian crude in spite of threats from the United States. So it's not really a working policy. And I imagine that Donald Trump might come on out and sanction everybody who's doing that business. But he can't sanction the whole world. We'll be right back after these few words.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination of garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite is designed to strengthen the heart and arteries and help the body heal itself. Doctors are not able to explain the improvements they are seeing in their patients' health who are taking Extendivite. People who once needed more pills are now taking less and getting better. Due to the unexplainable improvements in their patients' health, more doctors are calling to order Extendivite for themselves. Help Extendivite make your doctor a believer. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Attention RBN listeners. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, founder of Front Sight Firearms Training, and Fate have come together to allow RBN to run another fundraiser till the end of the year. We didn't really expect this opportunity, but thankfully it's here and running as you hear this. We've set a goal of 500 donations by the end of the year, which averages around 6 per day, 7 days a week. When you realize all the folks listening to RBN all hours of the day and night, we think our goal is realistic and extremely critical to keep RBN on the air. If everybody listening will seriously assess their ability with firearms and then take advantage of this opportunity, we feel our goal is very conservative. Please take the time to look over Front Sight's website to get an idea of an amazing facility and the world-class training that's going on there. If this interests you, you likely will have like-minded friends that would like to know. Tell them. If for some reason some listeners are not personally interested, consider sons and daughters, close friends, nieces or nephews, top valued employees, inform club members, share the opportunity with police and fire departments. It's not too early to plan Christmas presents for special people. This fundraiser has come at an extremely critical time for RBN because the dire need for equipment upgrades. We're running on the spare tire currently with no money to fix a flat, and the fuel gauge is bouncing on E. This is one of the most valuable ways you can help RBN financially because you get Commander lifetime membership value that is 50 times your donation and can be passed on forever. How many times during life do you get to leave a legacy? See more details and contact info on our webpage, republicbroadcasting.org, and thank you.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, distract yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job in one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And we're going to take a phone call here from Dan in Illinois. Aloha, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi. I seen a video this morning about this guy, Khashoggi. Now, he's tied in with the Muslim Brotherhood, and he's tied in with the bin Laden family. And his views were he wanted to take Saudi Arabia to the course that Egypt went on, where they jail everybody and do things like that. So you might want to check into that. And he was related to somebody. I know he's tied in with the bin Laden, or he's related to him, one of the two. But yeah, he was tied in with the Muslim Brotherhood. So
well,
maybe
you know, he was tied
in.
in with the government of Saudi Arabia previously. I mean, he was, he was an insider. He was in the Saudi media, but he got disenchanted or something happened, and he basically became a dissident.
Yeah, that's what I say. Maybe they seen him as being a double agent, so to speak, and decided what they decided.
Well, again, the story that we're seeing swirl around the corporate media is that what Saudi Arabia is going to claim is that the operation that basically grabbed him inside the consulate was unauthorized, and he died as the result of a botched interrogation. And they're going to blame the underlings, but that's the official story that's come on out. And I don't care what this Khashoggi was doing. Nothing justifies being tortured and killed. So anyway.
No, you don't have the right to snatch people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do that. But anyway, that's something, because you look at the Muslim Brotherhood here and compare it to the Muslim Brotherhood overseas over that way. There's a real big difference on their way they do things and their beliefs and what they want to do. So you got to take that into account. So I think he became a bad actor and they did something with him.
Well, we'll find out. I'm still waiting to see what the Saudi report is going to say, because again, Jake Tapper is now saying it could change. So they're obviously they're crafting a public response here. All right, Dan, thanks a lot. We're going to let you go and switch over to James in Ohio. Okay. Aloha, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
You made a good point about Elizabeth Warren. My family's been here since before the Revolutionary War, and I'm 1/8 Creek Indian, but I don't think that 10 generations ago or more gives you the right to put that on your. I'm definitely not one of these people that are offended, and either. My great-grandmother wouldn't have been offended at the Redskins or even somebody going, woo, whatever. But I don't think she should get into Harvard or whatever because some, back in the midst of prehistory, she had an Indian ancestor, maybe. And
and even the corporate media is saying that she could be 1/1000th Native American. Well, 1/1000. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's utterly ridiculous. And she made the claim to get into Harvard. She lied. Basically, she's a cheat.
Yeah, and I would definitely be voting for Shiva Ayerdai, the real Indian who's running against her. Now, that guy, if you look into him and watch some of his videos, especially on science, I would much rather have him in there than her. He's a successful businessman, very successful. He invented the modern incarnation of email, etc. Now on Khashoggi, this rogue killer thing, I mean, sure, the Saudis might do all these horrific things right in the public square for God and the world and everybody to see. They might starve 5 million Yemeni children to death, and they might blow up school buses, but they would never do this to a journalist on purpose. It has to be rogue killers. In fact, probably rogue killers, took care of Seth Rich and Vincent Foster.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you recall this or not, but Brett Kavanaugh kind of harried the first guy who happened upon Vince Foster's body, and kind of, along with somebody else who was an investigator at the time, kind of made him out like he was a suspect by way of convincing him not to participate in the investigation process.
That may have been Michael Rodriguez.
I think it was theater arranged by both sides to keep people's minds off of what he really did in his past.
Okay, well,
judicially.
James, we got to take another break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call, and we'll be right back.
Right.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking about the economic news here. And Donald Trump is out there claiming that the World Trade Organization is biased toward China. And is basically saying that unless the World Trade Organization reforms itself in a way where Trump's perception is no longer that there's bias in favor of China, that the U.S. will withdraw from the World Trade Organization. And I think that would be a really big mistake. But the World Trade Organization is out there, you know, could be a blessing in disguise. Alrighty, so let's talk about immigration. There is now a caravan of over 1,000 Honduran migrants now walking toward the U.S. border. And it's just totally out of control. It is totally, totally out of control. And we're already seeing how this influx of refugees and illegal immigrants is starting to basically drag the quality of life in the United States down to the same level as these other countries. And I know that's part of the globalist plan, that all countries should have an equal degree of squalor and decay, that there shouldn't be a country with a much higher standard of living, except, of course, for Israel. Now, here's an interesting little story. Apparently, somebody did this experiment up in Boston, which is a very liberal city, and they basically went on out and rode the trains, the elevated train, conducting surveys of the passengers, how they felt about migration, and created a baseline. Then they hired a whole bunch of Spanish-speaking people to spend all day riding the trains. Nothing else. They could do whatever they want, you know, go get lunch, talk about sports, whatever, but just be on the trains speaking Spanish. Then they went on back and ran that survey again on passengers and discovered the attitude had shifted markedly. That after being exposed to migrants, liberals definitely changed their opinion and started talking about, yeah, maybe there should be more control over the borders. Maybe there should be limits here. So more liberal hypocrisy here. Over in Germany, Angela Merkel's sister party, the CSU, has suffered its worst election result since 1950 in Bavaria. They received just 37.3% of the votes. And the Alternative for Germany party has finally won parliamentary seats. So the times they are a-changing over there. So the Christian Social Union, which is the sister party to Merkel's Christian Democratic Union, really took a pasting. The Germans have had it with all of this open border nonsense here. All right, let's get out to political correctness and what is going on in our culture here. Over in San Francisco, the school board's new president basically announced that the schools will drop the Pledge of Allegiance. And well, actually, he skipped the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting of the school board itself. This is not going out to the schools. And apparently, in its place, Stephen Cook quoted a Mayan poet, a Maya Angelou. Sorry about that. When you learn, teach. When you get, give. And apparently, it did upset a lot of people. And Cook told the Chronicle he chose not to enforce the Pledge of Allegiance because of his disappointment with the political climate. And he said the Trump administration has been attacking our liberties. Well, let me be clear about this. I obviously have issues with the United States government. Trump is a disappointment. But I still love my country and the vast majority of its population. And I'm one of those people who still think the flag ought to be treated with respect, not set on fire and dropped on the ground like they were doing up there in Portland. Fortunately, somebody came in and snatched it up and put the fire out. The flag is not the symbol of the government. I know the Pledge of Allegiance is sort of an oath of obedience to the government if you read between the lines here. But the American flag is not the symbol of the government. It's the symbol of this land and the American people, who for the most part are still worthy of respect. So which is why that NFL thing was just so ridiculous. And now the NFL, of course, they've come up with a flag that they're going to now carry at the NFL games. And it's a single red stripe, a single white stripe, and a single blue stripe with some white stars on it. 3, I think. And that's what they're going to be carrying now, so that nobody has to kneel anymore and that controversy can go away. Okay. This one, I think, was a little bit over the top. There was this North Carolina high school, and there was this 18-year-old student who was literally ordered to change a jersey he wore with the name Trump and the number 45 for a football game Friday night, and then marched off the premises by the school's principal. And the father is talking about suing, and I would agree, because that jersey is it's not offensive. Well, probably the liberals would say it is, but common sense. No, it's just a statement. And it's covered by that First Amendment right to freedom of expression. And I understand that our modern educational system is trying to obliviate the kids relative to their rights as guaranteed in the Constitution. You will obey. That's modern education here. Here's Me Too's ultimate end, I hope. Over in New York, there's a woman, Teresa Klein, who called 911 claiming that a young boy had grabbed her rear end at this store, at the Sahara Deli Market in Brooklyn. And she was screaming at the boy, screaming at the mother, apparently took a selfie, and just said, he's sexually assaulted me, made a real scene. Then the store security video showed what really happened. As the boy went by her, his backpack lightly brushed her rear end. That was it. No hands, no grabbing, no pinching. The little kid was just traumatized by having this witch scream at him here. It's insane. Now, if you've been around the feminist scene for a while, you're familiar with the name Camille Paglia. She's a writer, cultural commentator, and she was kind of a hardliner back in the 1990s, but she seems to kind of be softening and pulling back, because she just recently published a video denouncing what she describes as second wave feminism, as opposed to the first wave back in the 1990s, saying that its attempt to destroy men is going to be an absolute poison to our culture. It's also destroying women. And I don't know who's making money or political gain by trying to turn men and women against each other. But if you look back at that story from New York about the kid's backpack brushes her rear end and she cries effectively rape. It's just so over the top. I have to wonder what people in other countries watching us, Americans right now, think of us. It can't be positive. Okay. Over at the Washington Post, they ran this op-ed last Friday. This was a piece from Victoria Bissell-Brown, who is a retired history professor at Grinnell College. And talk about being anti-male. The op-ed basically says men are incapable of being good, even if they oppose sexism. Men are by nature vile and terrible, and they can't fix anything by listening to women. Instead, they must change from within. And sadly, though, they're not capable of such change, which begs the question, what the heck are men supposed to do aside from die? Then she launched into a description of how she spent the previous evening just screaming at her husband, who just apparently, if the op-ed is to be believed, sat there cowed with his head bowed, taking the abuse. I'm amazed they're still married. Up in Windsor, Vermont, parents are now very upset about a survey given to fifth graders. Keep that in mind. We're talking fifth graders that ask students about their sexual history, preferences, and gender identity. And WPTZ TV came on in and did some interviews with one of the mothers, Vanessa Beach. And she said, "My daughter is 10. So are all the other kids who took this. A sexual partner at 10 years old would be called sexual abuse. Actually, it would be called statutory rape." And the mother came on out and said, these are questions that are not appropriate for 10-year-old children. And students were not required to write their name on the survey, but they were asked to write their first initial and birthday, from which their identities could be tracked down. This is just really getting way, way out there, especially this gender fluidity. I think somebody said there's something like 80 different gender pronouns now, where there used to be 2. How do you keep them all straight? And we knew that this was going to become a problem here. They just had the World Cycling Championship yesterday, and Canadian Rachel McKinnon finished ahead of the field at the women's sprint 35 to 39 age bracket. And some people have praised her achievement, but others have said it was cheating because she was born a male and she has the muscles of a male. Forget all the surgery and all the rest of the changes. That's still a man in there, in the DNA, with men's muscles. And this idea of allowing men or boys to compete in girls' sports simply by saying, "I believe I'm a woman inside," it's hurting the girls. For the most part, they can't win against that competition. And everyone, the liberals are out there saying, "Oh, well, you've got to take into account the boys' feelings." What about the girls' feelings? Doesn't anybody care about all these girls who have joined school sports? They're working hard at it every day. They're heading into some kind of competition, and all of a sudden, it's just going to be taken away from them arbitrarily because of liberal politics. There is a reason that there are girls' sports and boys' sports because, and I know you liberals are not going to like this if there are any listening to this show, on the whole, boys are larger and stronger than girls. That is just a biological reality. Now, if the transgenders want to have their own category so that you have girls' sports, boys' sports, and whatever they are sports, that would be fine. But somebody needs to really understand the feelings of these girls who are on these teams, who are on these sports, and they can't compete against a male with male muscles. It's insane. Okay, we've been talking a lot about how the police are out of control. And part of it may be prescription antidepressants. Part of it appears to be the training by Israeli security companies to treat the American people the way the IDF treats the Palestinians. But another part has to do with being able to actually discipline an officer. And we've heard all these stories about officers who shot first and asked questions later, and they're protected by captains and other officers saying, "Oh, it fits the department protocol. They acted within protocol, therefore they get off." Now, there have been a couple of recent cases where police officers have been charged and tried on some serious crimes involving shooting deaths. But down in Florida is a good example of why policing the police can actually be very difficult. The Miami Herald is reporting that an arbitrator ordered the Opa-locka Police Department to rehire Sergeant German Bosk, and he returned to work last week. Now, he had been fired by the Miami suburb back in 2013 after being charged with handcuffing and swearing at a youth counselor who filed a complaint against him. He was acquitted of battery but convicted of evidence tampering, but that charge was later dropped when the conviction was appealed. Now, this guy over his career has been fired 6 times. A 2011 Sarasota Herald Tribune report found Bosk had 40, that's 40, internal affairs complaints, including 16 for battery or excessive force. So there's the problem. Abuse of police, apparently, that's the policy now. Used to be to protect and serve. I remember, again, when I was younger, cops were a lot calmer. They only used force when they absolutely had to. When did our society get so adversarial? And not all cops are like that, of course. I keep telling you about our neighbor who's really cool. But it is a problem when those who are supposed to be managing the police force are not doing their job or are being blocked from doing their job by these arbitrators. We got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring the freedom of speech and preserving the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know we're tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous, and is your #1 source for Ron Paul for President stickers. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will let you get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to LibertyStickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's LibertyStickers.com or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. This product is superb. I have been taking it for about a year now, and I can feel my cardiovascular system run like a Swiss watch. I definitely recommend this product for anyone that has high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart palpitations, A+. It's potent, but it works. I have been waking up for the past 3 years with numb hands, and a week into using Extendivite, my numb hands seem to have cleared up. My circulation was off, and now it's back on track. So I'm happy. I feel so energized, and I have my husband on it now. My mother-in-law has cholesterol problems, so I bought her a bottle as well. Thank you so much. Love the product. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. As most of you know, my regular listeners, I offer energy cleaners for sale at my website. If you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, go to my website, thelibertyman.com, educate yourself about these marvelous healing devices. We focus on pain mitigation and getting a great night's sleep. Arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, doesn't matter. Keep in mind, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. Energy cleaners, $285, shipping included to American zip codes. You can educate yourself all about the energy cleaner right there at my website, the patent application, the wonderful testimonials. Be sure and check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads to go with the energy cleaner. Now, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. I have a toll-free order line, or you can order it right at my website at thelibertyman.com. The toll-free order line is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Thank you.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant them anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If If you got the money, well, we won't say we did. The towers in
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, this is an interesting story, and it's from ZeroHedge.com, and it's about the FBI. Now, a little over 6 months ago, dozens of FBI agents were sanctioned for sexual misconduct back when James Comey was still the director. And the Wall Street Journal is now reporting that the FBI, whose motto is fidelity, bravery, integrity, is in trouble again because several FBI employees who were stationed in cities across Asia have now been recalled to Washington in recent months while the agency investigates allegations related to wild parties and interactions with prostitutes. And apparently this was personnel in some half a dozen cities, including in East and Southeast Asia. And the FBI's public comment is, we will take the appropriate actions when the allegations are investigated and reassign certain personnel to non-operational roles. So they got caught again here. Now, a while back, there was this explosion up in Canada of a pipeline, and it was a bad one. And the fire is obviously out, but the pipeline has been cut off, and they're trying to get it repaired. But Seattle is rapidly running out of its stockpiled natural gas, and they're starting to warn Seattle residents there may be rotating blackouts. I mean, can't they get a liquefied natural gas carrying ship up there or something? This story, yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about corporate media. Let's talk about all this censorship that we are seeing go on. And I hope Larry Klayman is able to make some gain with this antitrust lawsuit. So alternative voices are being cracked down on Facebook and Twitter. Searches are being biased over in Google. We're turning into the land of censorship and home of the fake. And very clearly, this is linked to the midterm election. Some 800 pages have been shut down or deplatformed. And it very clearly is absolute censorship. So let's look at some of the websites that are now being censored. The Free Thought Project, it's banned on Facebook, banned on Twitter. The Anti-Media, banned on Facebook, banned on Twitter. Police the Police has been banned on Facebook and Twitter. Apparently it's not just conservative points of view, it's critics of out-of-control police. Facebook, let's see, Filming Cops, that website has now been banned on Facebook and Twitter. We're going to take a break for some station identification. We'll be back with more about the censorship and banning after these few words.
This is too good to be true, except this time it is real. 100%. No joke. How about a $25,000 membership to Front Sight Firearms Training Facility as a thank you bonus for a one-time donation to RBN of only $500? It is a Commander lifetime membership with no yearly fees or dues. The training is free for the rest of your life with over 50 different classes. Then leave it to your designated beneficiary. You provide the approved firearm, holster, ammo, eye, and ear protection. Many features and bonuses are included, more than you would ever expect or believe. This is the ultimate graduation present, wedding gift, etc., etc. See the details. Go to RBN's webpage and frontsight.com to make it happen. You will hear this offer only on this radio network. Help keep RBN alive. Tell 5.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And we're talking about this very heavy-handed censorship campaign, which is not only targeting conservatives ahead of the midterm elections, it also is targeting websites that call attention to the bad behavior of the police. And so some of the websites being blocked, like Nation in Distress, which is a pro-Trump, pro-GOP page, that one is banned on Facebook, still allowed to post to Twitter. Another page, Cop Block, which is another police accountability project, banned on Facebook but not on Twitter. Another one here called Policing the Police, banned on Facebook, no Twitter account found. Cop Logic, banned on Facebook, not banned on Twitter. Press for Truth, and basically it's like what really happened. Looks at the news the corporate media won't report. Banned on Facebook, yes. Banned on Twitter, no. And let's see, according to the Wall Street Journal, Facebook has taken down 559 pages and 251 accounts, virtually all of them American, because they've, quote, have consistently broken our rules against spam and coordinated inauthentic behavior. No, it's just banning conservatives is what it is. Let's see. Russia Today American correspondent Rachel Blevins had her page shut down by Facebook. So apparently she had nearly 70,000 followers. The page was taken down and marked as spam because of posts that were allegedly misleading users. That was Facebook's vague statement. In other words, Facebook is shutting down anybody they don't agree with. Oh, we don't agree with what you're saying. You must be spreading misinformation here. Another story about this out of Zero Hedge saying that it's very, very obvious. You know, these 800 accounts, prominent conservatives have vanished. So from now until the election, you need to get on out there and just tell people this is going on. That they can't go to the internet to find out what's going on with the elections because the internet has been taken over by the liberal establishment. And you can refer them to whatreallyhappened.com. You can refer them to Republic Broadcasting. You can refer them to any of these websites that have been taken down. And just say, you have to go find it yourself. And don't use Google, use DuckDuckGo, which, by the way, is coming on very, very strongly. If you use Google, you will be spoon-fed a big load of manure to get your votes for the Democrats here. Story coming out of the Organic Prepper, and it's talking about how Mark Zuckerberg was going around the media trying to basically sanitize the censorship and say we're good censors. We're being good censors, and of course out here we're calling it the purge of the independent media. But Zuckerberg was saying these closed pages, they're spreading political spam. And ironically, many of the pages were shut down, had absolutely nothing to do with politics and elections, unless you include the fact that they recommended skipping the entire circus. Now, none of these pages were accused of being the Russians. But it's just, yeah, these owners of this corporate media, they're hijacking the public discussion. And we should not tolerate it. We should work to find a way around it. Now, I stopped using Facebook and Twitter months ago because I was getting tired of every time I would post something, a whole bunch of trolls would get onto it, start screaming at me. So I just stopped using it. But I am starting to use the alternatives more and more. DuckDuckGo is now my default search engine. And I strongly recommend that you do the same. Now, we mentioned this story last week, but we're going to mention it again because I'm concerned about what's going on. As you know, Facebook suffered a major hack that exposed highly sensitive personal information on 14 million of Facebook's users. And originally, they said it was 50 million. Then they dropped it to 30 million. And then they came on back and said it was only 14 million. Here's the interesting part. There was a quote, according to Guy Rosen, who's the vice president of product management at Facebook. Quote, "We're cooperating with the FBI, which is actively investigating, and asked us not to discuss who may be behind this attack." So what is going on here? Was the hack done by a government agency that needs to stay secret? Or are they going to use this hack? Are they going to frame somebody with this hack? Forget who really did the hack. We're going to blame Russia for it. We're going to blame Iran for it. And we're going to blame North Korea for it. But that's very odd that the FBI comes on and says, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it at all. All right, we're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network here. Christy Lee McNally is out there saying that unfortunately, the big corporate social media companies, Twitter, Google, Facebook, they have so much money, they hire so many lobbyists, they're not worried about any legislation that's going to come on down in the wake of this obvious censorship. Basically, Google, which has bought so many other things, appears to have bought the Congress. We're in a hopeless mess here. We're definitely headed into totalitarianism. Now, a little bit of good news, okay? Ecuador has now restored Julian Assange's internet, phone, and visitation privileges. Now, this is quite a turnaround from the story we were hearing last week where they were going to kick him out in the streets and let him get arrested. So that's got to be making things a little bit easier for Julian. And Ecuador may have done it because they just got an award from the United Nations, praise for freedom of expression. And they may have decided that looks a little odd given how they're treating Assange. So his internet and his phone are back on, and good for him. And almost as soon as he got his internet connection back out, he basically tweeted out to Donald Trump, "Indict Hillary Clinton by October 21st, or we," meaning WikiLeaks, "will reveal all her crimes publicly." And for almost 2 years, Clinton and the deep state have been trying to drum up this Trump-Russia collusion story, which has so far been a big nothing burger. And it seems Assange realizes time is running out for him in exile, and he needs to do something that has evaded President Trump. Well, at this point, I'm reminded of the old Nike slogan, "Just do it." Just do it. Over at the Daily Mail, I have to sort of say this story is suspect. We're seeing so many totally bogus stories coming out of Great Britain about Russia this and Russia that, and Russia's going to do that, and Skripal this, and Novichok that here. This headline story is there's now a hunt for Russian sleeper agents planning a series of attacks to bring down Britain's internet. And this is all supposedly coming from a GRU whistleblower. Now, this is hard on the heels of these 4 Russians who were wrongfully arrested and accused of hacking, and it turned out they were supposed to be there. And supposedly these Russian agents have been tasked with disrupting trade after Brexit by bringing the internet to a halt in Britain. Well, again, look for what should be there and isn't. Why would Russia want British trade to be destroyed following Brexit? Certainly, a lot of other countries would want that, but not Russia. Russia's not on board with this one world government, one world banking system. I imagine they're going to be on the side of Great Britain finally breaking free of the EU. And I imagine they'll be first in line to make some trade deals. Another story coming on out. Facebook and Google declare all pro-liberty speech to be political spam or Russian bots. And they go on the censorship list. Oh, if you're talking about, freedom and rights, you must be a Russian. We have to ban you. That's political spam to talk about the First Amendment or the Fourth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment. You're just spamming the Bill of Rights all over the net. We have to shut you off here. And I told you this thing was going to spread. This whole idea of controlling the discussion. Pinterest has now come on out saying that if you question vaccines, you are spreading self-harm and must be banned. So now they're coming down on people who question vaccine safety. Which brings us to the next section of our talking points. Children's hospitals across the country are reporting the spread of a rare polio-like illness which has affected 38 people across 16 states this year. Now, they're calling this disease acute flaccid myelitis, or AFM. Now, not too long ago, when this first showed up, doctors were diagnosing it as polio. And the word went on out, no, you can't say that. These kids have all had the polio vaccine. This has to be described as something new. But the symptoms are virtually identical. And it's inflammation of the spinal cord, which results in limb, facial, oral, or eye weakness. And so, yeah, did these kids have the polio vaccine? Because a few years ago, there was a known issue with the oral polio vaccine, which used a weakened pathogen, or an attenuated pathogen, that could regain full potency once administered. Down in Southern California, the infectious typhus, being fueled by the homeless, or to be more accurate, the fleas on them, is reaching epidemic levels. So, now I wonder where the typhus came from, because typhus is one of those diseases that had been eradicated inside the United States. And all of a sudden, it's pouring on in again. Another story, this is out of governmentslaves.info, and it's talking about this Mia Blesky, 12 years old, and lives in England. She was given the first round of the Gardasil shot at school when she was 12 years old. Within 24 hours, Mia's nightmare started. The morning after she got the shot, Mia was unable to walk and had a burning sensation running down her spine. Within weeks, the paralysis spread to all 4 limbs. And what's worse is doctors refused to acknowledge the fact that Mia's symptoms began after her shot. Instead, health officials are saying Mia's paralysis it's just all in her head. And really the best thing to do would be to institutionalize her. Instead of helping this vaccine-injured child, British health authorities want to lock her up in a mental home so that no one will hear or believe what happened to her. Now, as you know, it's flu season, and they're out there pushing the flu shots as hard as they can. A lot of scare tactics out there. And as we reported last week, this claim that 80,000 Americans died of the flu last year is pure media fluff. And part of the reason is because a lot of people will have flu-like illnesses, but it's not actually the flu. And as it turns out, the actual incidence of flu is very low. People are getting shots for the wrong thing. And so there's this article over here from Natural News saying that many people who think they have the flu actually have mild cases of salmonella or E. coli poisoning. And we know there's been recent issues with food safety in this country, a lot of recalls on out there. But if the recall doesn't get to you, you could eat something you got at the supermarket that's contaminated, and it makes you sick. Up in Norway, there's been a case, and it's conscientious objection. The court basically found that Dr. Katarzyna Yakimowicz, acted within her rights when she refused to follow through with an abortion, to which she has a moral objection. And the court told health authorities to respect the right to conscientious objection for medical professionals in their employment. Well, that's certainly a far cry from the attitude that we see here in the United States, where, you know, you will bake me a cake for a gay wedding. I think forcing somebody to do something they're uncomfortable with on moral grounds creates a dangerous situation. They're not going to be enthusiastic. They're going to be openly hostile to being forced to do it. It might lead to mistakes or worse. We're going to take a phone call from Mark in Georgia. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello. Listen, I guess we may be leading the way to an exodus from the Facebook Zuckerberg thing, and I want to spell this out to you so that you can write it down. Isegoria, Isegoria, and it's basically a Greek word meaning for equality in terms of freedom of speech. And this is related to Ben Swan. He's just recently announced that this website is going to be, this new social network is going to be coming out, where I gather there will be ground rules like don't go advocating lawless violence. By the way, it's redundant. Violence means the unlawful. So obviously there's going to be things that where nobody who advocates committing unprovoked acts of violence will be allowed there. But other than that, you can pretty much say whatever you want. Does that make sense?
Well, that's definitely the best way to run a fair and open blog, if you will, because anytime you set up a blog, there are going to be agent provocateurs who are going to want to come on in and try and junk it up or post inappropriate stuff. So you do have to have rules. And it's one of the reasons why the comments on my website are restricted to the members, because when we had open commenting, it just drew all kinds of trolls that were just trying to junk it up. I remember back in the days of Usenet when the Senator Exxon came out with his amendment to the Telecommunications Act, you know, to bring in this scourge of porn. And starting a month before he came up with the legislation, Usenet was just being flooded with porn into completely inappropriate areas like cooking groups. And we were trying to police ourselves and say, really, go over to the alt categories, because that's where this stuff belongs. And the poster would say, I have a First Amendment right to post this really tacky picture here in the cooking group. And so we started tracking down their IPs and discovered they were all coming from military and government computers. And after that legislation got through Congress, it was like a switch had been thrown and the flood of porn turned off. So there do have to be some reasonable controls. What is objectionable in the case of Facebook and Google and Twitter is the owner's liberal bias is being given free rein. And for that reason, we've got to stop using them and switch over to the alternatives.
Well, I would contend that both neoconservative and neoliberal are both Hegelian dialectic. And although I've dealt with a lot of people that are basically decent means decent within your own life, with one's own life, about being accountable, being responsible, adhering to the rule of law. But the thing is, when people are basically decent, but they have no idea how they've been manipulated and deceived, they're going to go along with things because the official narrative makes it sound reasonable. Well, we're going after terrorism, and then it's only terrorism when they do it.
Okay, I'm going to put you on hold. Mark, I'm going to put you on hold. We got to take a commercial break. Don't hang up. We'll be right back.
Many people write about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you a few from Amazon.com. My wife and I both use Extendivite and are very pleased with the results. It has helped to stabilize our blood pressure and to make both of us feel healthier. Good product and good buy. So far, so good. I've been taking Extendivite 3 times a day, only a short while now, but already I've noticed the circulation in my hands and feet improving. They tingle. I like the idea of taking something herbal rather than pills. I take Extendivite 3 times a day, every day. I think this supplement has helped with my increased fitness regime and to lower my blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're talking with Mark in Georgia. And Mark, you were talking about the Hegelian dialectic and how you think both political parties are engaged in it, and you're absolutely right, because it's one of the tools of rulership, and it has been for a very long time.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Drew Weston. Kind of like Western, but you drop the R. And he's actually in Atlanta, and I think it's Emory University, where he did brain scan studies. And what he found was that when people are politically biased either to the left or the right, you know, cetera paribus Latin, for all else being equal, that under normal circumstances, people will apply critical thinking about some negative information. But when people are politically biased in favor of somebody, instead of the cognitive part of the brain lighting up in these PET scans, positron emission topography, it gives a map of the activity within the brain.
Yes.
And what he found is that when people are shown negative information on people they view favorably, the emotional part of the brain is triggered.
Exactly.
And the negative information is dismissed without critical thinking. And here's the thing that really, like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. The reward center is what is triggered when somebody is addicted, whether it's addicted to gambling, and addicted to drugs, addicted to some kind of behavior, sex, whatever. But when people dismiss the negative information, the reward center is triggered in a manner disturbingly similar to addiction. And this is just as true of the right as it is of the left. And that's where, I depolarized when I saw Building 7 go, subsequent to seeing Building 7 go straight down to its own footprint. And it launched me into a rather drastic paradigm shift where I came to realize that the answer is like Brewster's Millions, none of the above. If you've seen the movie, he ran a political campaign as a means of squandering outrageous amounts of money, and it did, but what he was advocating is not for this candidate or that candidate, but none of the above. And now my hands are starting to cramp up on me, so I'm going to have a hard enough time driving. But ISET Goria, ISETGORIA.com, and I think that you would do well at there, and so will a lot of other RPN followers who don't like having their particular vantage point of depolarizing. They don't like that being stifled, like criticism of so-called Israel. No, I don't have a problem with Jews. I have a problem with phonies that claim to have a moral standard they're not living up to. And that, most Jews are decent people. So my criticism is not for Jews. My criticism are for pretentious phonies who say that who say they have a moral standard that actually stands in judgment against them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but you do need to understand that people of the Jewish faith, and I learned this from my first wife, who was Ashkenazi, they think that morality and the Ten Commandments only applies to their fellow Jews, and everybody else was put on earth to serve them. And so that's where that's where that attitude of contrast, in their eyes, they are very moral to each other, but they're under no obligation to be moral to anybody outside.
They're obliged to appear to be moral, like Machiavellians. You have to appear to be moral. Jeez, my hand's cramping on me again.
Okay, yeah, well, you shouldn't be talking on the phone and driving at the same time anyway, so I'm going to let you go.
I hear you. And I'm having enough of a time with my hand saying, I'm going to squeeze these up on you here. Okay.
All right,
talk with you later. Thank
drive
you.
safely, and thank you for the phone call. We're going to start with Daniel in British Columbia, and Daniel, I'm probably going to have to take you through the next commercial break.
Aloha, Michael. Yeah, I wanted to touch base with you last week, but we didn't have time. It's something that happened to me while I was living and working in the United States in Las Vegas, and worked at a fine dining restaurant. I only made $8.25 an hour, but I made good tips. But I went to I used to be dressed up nice before work, and I'd go to the local coffee shop, and there was a guy there with a clipboard and a Bank of America insignia on his shirt and a little Bluetooth in his ear, and he went up and asked me if I wanted a mortgage. So I told him I only make $8.25 an hour. I've got a working permit. And, I'd never qualify for it. And he goes and says, oh, that's no problem. We'll get you into a mortgage. So I thought, this was in 2006. So I didn't really think anything of it until 2008 when all these stories of predatory lending came out. And so I just thought I'd share that. Now, I know lately the Wells Fargo Bank has been engaging in this practice again, where they're just
they're
handing
starting
them
it
out
all
like
over again.
candy.
They're starting it all over again, and the crash of 2008 caused so much suffering, but with the exception of Lehman Brothers, the companies that did all of this, they paid a few fines, and that was it. Most of the pain fell on other businesses and the American people. and we had to fund TARP and quantitative easing and go through all of this nonsense. And because no lessons were learned back in 2008, they are in fact starting it all over again. Anyway, Daniel, thank you for the call. We're going to let you go, and we got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354, or visit MIG911.com.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Extendivite, made from garlic, cayenne, bilberry, hawthorn, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle, feeds our body with the nutrients we need to keep healthy. Just listen to what Arthur had to say.
I was just calling to tell you what a great product you have. I had used this about 10 years ago after I had congestive heart failure. And it fixed me up and got me going for the last 10 years. Lately, I've been having heart trouble again, so I placed another order because this was the only thing that ever worked. I just wanted to let you know that you have a great product. Thank you very much.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And the story is just now breaking. Paul Allen, who co-founded Microsoft, has passed away from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was 65. So he did a lot of good philanthropic work with his money as opposed to trying to muck things up like Bill Gates does here. Now, we have talked on the show lately about CBD, which is the non-psychoactive ingredient in cannabis that seems to have a lot of very positive medical benefits. And apparently the DEA has rescheduled CBD but the technicalities show the ruling is actually highly restrictive. Apparently, this CBD, basically the DEA is granting a pharmaceutical company a monopoly on medical CBD. And apparently over at GW Pharmaceuticals, they were manufacturing a synthetic CBD, and due to federal government's continued prohibition of cannabis, Epidiolex was prohibited from going to market unless the DEA rescheduled CBD, which is exactly what the I'm sorry, okay. So that's what the FDA did. So for synthetically produced CBD, there's now a monopoly, which means high prices. Fortunately, the hemp-produced CBD falls into the same category now, and so there are no restrictions there. All right. Now, back in the 60s, you know, it was a wild time, and there were all kinds of drugs here. The CIA's mind control MK Ultra experiments had made LSD a popular party drug. MDMA was out there, and they were all scheduled and banned. There's a war on drugs. You can't have the drugs. But attitudes appear to be shifting, and it may have been triggered by the fact that marijuana is now being recognized as having a positive medical benefit. And there's new medical research that's going back and taking a closer look at ways that psychedelic drugs can, first of all, assist terminal cancer patients facing death, end addictions to alcohol and tobacco, relieve suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And they're looking at LSD and MDMA, which is called ecstasy. And when I first learned of MDMA, it was legal. And some therapists were starting to use it because it sped up that whole therapy process. Because apparently one of the things MDMA lets you do is kind of look at yourself without all the fear and recriminations. And so that was a very positive thing. But then it got scheduled and it went away. Here's an article I think everybody needs to pay attention to. This is from CBC up in Canada, and it's talking about how there seems to be a major problem with scientists asking statisticians to fudge the data produced by their studies and experiments. And over at McGill University, bioethicist Jonathan Kimmelman is saying the results should be concerning to everyone of this recent survey. So these biostatisticians were surveyed. The results were released today. And basically, the statisticians reported scientists routinely ask them to fudge the data. And we're not talking like gambling or anything like that. We're talking food. We're talking drugs. They're using this statistical information to make decisions about what drugs to take, what foods to eat, what policies to follow, what chemicals to ban. And now we're learning the integrity of that data is suspect. Of course, we've known that all along because of ClimateGate. Speaking of which, winter, as forecast by the Old Farmer's Almanac, did come early this year. Snow warnings were issued across 8 states this weekend as the Rockies brace for a record cold temperatures and a foot of snow. It is only October 15th, I would like to point out. Apparently, over in Colorado, the I-70 was briefly closed between the Eisenhower Tunnel and Georgetown. There were several spun-out vehicles that spun out on the snow and ice. The Front Range got a good, solid dusting. Temperatures dropped to the lower 20s, and they got up to 7 inches of snow in Fort Collins. So it's definitely turning white out there. Okay. there is an upcoming football game between the Rams and the Broncos, and it's going to be a rather interesting game. It happens this weekend. And so far, the field at the Broncos Stadium has several inches of snow on it. Headline over in Kilo.com, dreaming of a white Halloween. And apparently the Minnehaha County Sheriff's Office is using urging extreme caution when traveling in Minnehaha County. Roads are very slick due to accumulating snow and slush. Other reports coming out of northwest Iowa. Apparently there have been some accidents around Sioux Falls because of the snow. And apparently, the National Weather Service reported 2.6 inches of snow had fallen at the airport, with heavier amounts in the southern Sioux Falls. Now, this brings me to something I want to share with you. And it has to do with cruise control on your car. And a lot of people, apparently, when the roads are wet, they'll turn on their cruise control to just maintain a steady, at the speed limit, velocity for what they think is maximum safety. You should never, ever do that, because apparently the way cruise controls are designed, if you were to hydroplane and some of your wheels stop turning, the cruise control will think you're below your desired speed and it will floor the gas and you will spin out of control. Okay. So, wet road, don't touch the cruise control. Over in Billings, Montana, they have this annual tradition, the Harvest Fest. And it's usually held the second Saturday in October, a week after the last farmer's market. This one got snowed in. So it is an early winter, and it promises to be a hard one. And, of course, over at MSNBC, they're declaring that they're the burden on journalists to educate these bizarre, crazy climate deniers. Well, nobody denies the climate changes. What's at issue is whether humans are to blame or not. Now, Trump is out there saying climate change is not a hoax, and no, it isn't. Climate changes, it always has, it always will. He's just saying it's not really certain whether it's man-made or it's just nature. And he's saying the climate will change back again. Well, maybe eventually. All right, let's take a phone call. We're going to go to Mateus in Canada. Aloha, Mateus. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. Sorry for the poor sound quality. I'll just make 2 points and listen to your answer on the air. Hey, I just want to talk about Pocahontas. A couple of fun facts about this story.
Yep.
So the DNA result is that she's between 1/32nd and 1/1000th native. Okay, that's what the test is.
Well,
so
no, hang on. The Boston Globe, when they reported the story, they made a math error. The actual final result of the DNA test is that she is likely, they're not even saying definitely, likely 1/1000th, actually 1/1012th Native American. But again, the test can't be relied on because there's so little Native American DNA to use as a reference. They actually use DNA from Mexico, Peru, and Colombia. So the DNA test is completely pointless. They may have discovered that Elizabeth Warren is 1/1000th Mexican or Peruvian or Colombian.
Right. You're stealing my thunder a little bit here, but I still have something to add to that. So they used those three groups you just said. So keep in mind that it's 1/1000th for it to be any one of those three groups. For it to be a particular one of those three groups, you would start multiplying. For example, the chances of rolling a pair of dice, any doubles, is 1 out of 6. But if you predict the double ahead of time, it's 1 out of 36. So what she is she's 1/1000th, one of any three possible groups. But she wasn't looking for any three possible groups. She's looking for a one group. So actually that number of 1/1000 starts getting multiplied. You understand?
Yes.
The logic?
Yes, I do. And
yeah, okay. I wanted to mention something about Russia's military budget.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if we have 700 bases and Russia has a few, and if Russia has maybe one war going on or one or two wars or whatever you want to call it, and we have maybe anywhere from like a 10 to 60, then you just do the math and their budget is way bigger than ours as far as what it can purchase and stockpile and pay for, because the American budget is just being spent on maintaining these hundreds of bases and all these wars. So that's why their equipment is better, is because they've got a 10 times smaller budget, but 100 times less waste funding all these wars.
Yes.
So they have a bigger budget than we do, effectively.
Well, for weapons development and building, yes, because much of that money that goes into the Pentagon is being used to maintain and fund these bases all over the world. Plus, there's a huge amount of waste. I mean, military procurement is a big joke, and it's just all about the money.
Yeah. And just a final reminder for everybody is that Trump was $4 billion facing bankruptcy in the past, with $1 billion being personally liable for, and he was bailed out by Jewish power and Jewish money. And the people that bailed him out are in his cabinet now. I believe it's the Secretary of Treasury is the person who bailed him, who made the decision to bail him out. And I've seen documentaries where the people that bailed him out are speaking and they're explaining their actions. They're saying that he's worth more to us alive than dead as a brand. And this is the reason why Trump is refusing to show his tax return. It's because he doesn't want everyone to see that he's completely failed at these businesses and is just being used by Zionists, Jewish Zionists, as a puppet and a brand. So thank you very much, Michael. I'll let you go.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. Now, getting on back to Elizabeth Warren, and apparently there's a firestorm on social media that she even dared to go public with this, 1/1000th, likely 1/1000th Native American, based on a DNA test that involved DNA from Mexico, Colombia, and Peru. The Secretary of State of the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin Jr., has basically come on out and said a DNA test is useless to determine tribal citizenship. Remember, Elizabeth Warren said she was Cherokee. Okay? Current DNA tests do not even distinguish whether a person's ancestors were indigenous to North or South America. Sovereign tribal nations set their own legal requirements for citizenship, and while DNA tests can be used to determine lineage, such as paternity to an individual, it is not evidence for tribal affiliation. Using a DNA test to lay claim to any connection to the Cherokee Nation or any tribal nation, even vaguely, is inappropriate and wrong. It makes a mockery out of DNA tests and its legitimate uses, while also dishonoring legitimate tribal governments and their citizens, whose ancestors are well documented and whose heritage is proven. Senator Warren is undermining tribal interests with her continued claims of tribal heritage. So they're not happy with her, and I don't blame them one bit. And you have to wonder just how arrogant Elizabeth Warren was to go public with this. I mean, anybody looking at these numbers are going to realize there's nothing there. There's next to nothing there. Even if that 1/1000th does prove to be some form of Native American, it's not enough to say, I'm of the Cherokee tribe. I think her advisors should have said, look, you can't go with this. There's not enough there. And I guess she overrode them. She went on out and said, Trump owes me an apology. I am 1/1000th Mexican, Peruvian, Colombian. We're not sure. But it's definitely there. But as I said at the beginning of the show when we first talked about this, anybody whose family goes back in this country for any significant amount of time, and on my mother's side of the family, we've been here since before it was a country, you're going to find Native American DNA. But Elizabeth Warren tried to use that Cherokee affiliation. She did use it to advance herself, to get special benefits and special privilege. And she was wrong to do it. Okay, getting on back to ClimateGate. As you know, the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change basically came on out with a new report saying that we've only got 12 years left to save the world from human-caused global warming. And they're basically talking about things like a $240 per gallon tax on gasoline. They're basically asking for $38.4 trillion over the next 12 years. Pay it up or Earth gets it. And Trump's response was, why should I trust them? And he's absolutely right about that. Over at the University of St. Thomas, they have a Professor John Abraham who actually came on out with the statement saying that the Florida Panhandle residents deserve to get hit by a hurricane because they elected climate deniers. So according to this professor, had Hillary won in 2016, there would have been no hurricane, Michael? I don't think it works that way. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors with our last segment of the program today.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
This is too good to be true, except this time it is real. 100%. No joke. How about a $25,000 membership to Front Sight Firearms Training Facility as a thank you bonus for a one-time donation to RBN of only $500? It is a Commander lifetime membership with no yearly fees or dues. The training is free for the rest of your life with over 50 different classes. Then leave it to your designated beneficiary. You provide the approved firearm, holster, ammo, eye, and ear protection. Many features and bonuses are included, more than you would ever expect or believe. This is the ultimate graduation present, wedding gift, etc., etc. See the details. Go to RBN's webpage and frontsight.com to make it happen. You will hear this offer only on this radio network. Help keep RBN alive. tell 5.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program today. We're talking about human-caused global warming. And the journal Nature Plants, apparently today, published a study claiming that global barley production is going to drop in the presence of global warming. Well, why is that important? Well, because barley is used to make beer. And so beer is global warming's next victim. I got to add this to that list I keep of all the things that are being blamed on human-caused global warming. But it's just all scare tactics. Now they're going after the beer drinkers. Over at NASA, they've had some rough time. A little bit of good news. They're looking at the Mars mega rocket and asking, is it ever going to get off the ground? The cost of the project has doubled to $8.9 billion. And apparently NASA is criticizing Boeing for management, technical, and infrastructure issues. Apparently there was an audit, and the report found that Boeing will exhaust the contract's original $6.2 billion budget 3 years before it's scheduled to end and ultimately spend before it's scheduled to end. And ultimately, they will spend $8.9 billion through 2021 without delivering the rocket's core stage or its upper stage. The audit blamed insufficient staffing and improper assembly of factory tools for the delays. Wow. Apparently, things have gotten so bad that NASA is examining the possibility of flying the space station without a crew. In other words, to simply abandon it. Bring down a crew, don't take up a replacement. Now, the ISS has been continually manned since it was first assembled. But that's a serious issue here. And complicating it, of course, was the explosion of the Soyuz rocket. And that crew got back on down, but they're still examining it. And the current crew on the International Space Station may have to wait a little bit until their ride home shows up. Now, I can imagine that a little more time in space is probably going to be seen as a pleasant thing. And they do have enough food to last through to next summer. But, yeah. So, a little bit of good news, though. The Chandra X-ray Observatory, which had gone into safe mode just a week after the Hubble telescope went into the same thing, it's back. NASA has said they got the gyro working again, and the telescope will return to normal operation later this week. They're going to run some tests on it. But it's been a rough time for NASA. You've got the Opportunity rover is still not communicating. You've got Curiosity still dealing with its computer problems. I'd hate to be NASA upper management. Boy, am I glad I didn't take head of NASA. And there's the music. Time for me to get out of here. I got to do the Jim Goddard show up there in Vancouver. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure that he has got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please make a point of telling people that the internet is being filtered for the benefit of the liberals, and that if they need to find out what's going on, they're going to have to do their searches on web search engines like DuckDuckGo. Please donate to RBN. Please donate to What Really Happened. Thanks to everybody that already did. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.